Hello, hello, and hello. I am live. There we go. And I apologize for the delay, but sometimes it is necessary. So I've been talking about the pivot. We are in pivot mode. That means that when challenges and situations come, we don't let that control us. We are talking about the pivot. So yesterday I talked about the pivot. I talked about removing the barriers, removing our blinders so that we can see more clearly. And when we do that, that's to our advantage. So I started off talking about I quit my job, wrote a book. Now what? Then we switched to the pivot. Why? Because it's a season of pivot. We're in a new season. We're in the springtime. What happens in the springtime? We have storms, we have rain, we have seeds that have been planted and then they come up. Sometimes in the midst of a storm, though, we find ourselves out of control. Have you ever been in a storm and didn't know what to do? Perfect example. Last year, there was a tornado in my city. I was driving. I had just dropped my son off in Allendale and was driving on my way to pick up my daughter from practice. I looked in the rear view mirror and I was like, wow, that is eerie. It was eerie, but shortly thereafter, it was a storm. A storm. It was a tornado warning. That's what it was. And when the tornado warning went off, everybody, well, I'll speak for myself. I was in a state of panic because I had never been out driving in the midst of a tornado. So after getting my bearings, I made it to the destination where my daughter was and immediately told everybody to take cover. Why? Because that's where safety is. In cover. So, but if we're talking about self-control in the middle of a storm or in the midst of a storm, what about our everyday storms? How do you respond to those everyday storms? Do you allow people to get you off your spot where you have been drawn into their emotions? Or do you step back, assess the situation, and then decide what you want to do based on what you think is best, not based on what somebody else may think is best for you? So as we continue in the pivot, we continue talking about storms and going through the storms and pressing through the storms. You know, I'm reminded of the eagle. And we know the eagle is like the royalty of all birds. They usually travel alone. They don't travel in packs. But when they are faced with a storm, they go through that storm. They go through the storm and then up above the storm because that's where they find safety. So I want to encourage you not to get sucked into a storm, not to get sucked into what seems like a crisis situation, but to stay focused because you rest assured that more than likely you will get through it. Don't let the storm control you. Don't let other people control you. Don't let them get you so panicked that you are off your spot. So that is all that I have to share. I'm trying to keep it short and sweet. So my name is Keishan. I am your human resource. I help people see the possibilities in what they think is impossible. I am disrupting HR, disrupting leadership, and I hope that this just disrupted you. Until next time, take care. God bless.